Hello. I just thought I'd jump on and say a couple of words before I thoroughly enjoy all the bubbles myself. But essentially today has already been an insanely beautiful, best day ever. And I'm smiling ear to ear, and I know by the end of tonight my cheeks are going to be aching. But it's really hard not to smile like this when your new husband looks as good as this. No, genuinely, I just wanted to take a couple of words because it's quite nice to be able to say them towards the groom as well. Paul, for me, you have shown me a new definition of love. You've done nothing but unconditionally love me from the moment we met and helped me love myself in a whole different way, genuinely. So thank you for everything you've given me and give me, and I can't wait to spend a lifetime with you. Oh, spill. for all the years to come. And I know we've got a whole lifetime in us, and I know we'll make it. So thank you for everything. To call you a rock would be an understatement. You are a boulder. Look at him. Look at him. All of those gym classes are paid off. So genuinely, and a quick little cheers to my handsome, gorgeous husband, please. Only additionals I want to say is that with a marriage, it's not just kind of us two coming together, it's also two families. So I'm trying to check my mum is here, dad over there, Daniel. Honestly, the opportunities you've given me, the hard work you've done to get me where I am today, I'm incredibly grateful. Also, all the time spent patiently waiting for me to get my face painted because I completely love getting it done every time I possibly can. Thank you for that. And to Marion and Brian, from Paul's parents, where are they? Hello. Cheers. Thank you for welcoming me into the family so warmly, so kindly, and with enough Sauvignon Blanc to wash away any problems I could ever have. Genuinely, thank you so, so much for always welcoming me in. But it's not just about family, it's all about friends as well. Genuinely, we absolutely love spending dinner parties, holidays, whatever, with all of our friends, and it's an extension of family. So thank you for making all the trip to be here, for looking so damn good, and we just can't wait to party the night away now, right? It's just going to be insane. It already is. And here's a big cheers to everyone. Ega Shega Dra. I want to see those shot planks going and that Hubbitus finish before we go in. Cheers, everyone. Cheers.
So on that note, I really just have to introduce the speech from Rose and Francis.
I should get my glass. I should probably get my glass with me, shouldn't I? Okay. So,
We just need to check that you're...
hello everyone! Hello! So, I thought the most stressful part of today was going to be the speech. But actually it was managing the flowers this morning. But it all went beautifully. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening celebrating this very special night of those two wonderful people over there. For those that don't know us, this is Francis and I'm Rose. And we met Kitty at the University of Bristol over 10 years ago now. God, we're getting old. From the very first day I met Kitty, I decided that she just had to be my best friend. She had, and still has, this incredible energy that rubs off on everyone around her and makes you feel so very special whilst also having the best time. So, Kitty, how to describe her? Oh, she has always been amazing at many things. At uni, not only was she a lot more studious than me, but she was also a heck of a lot more flexible. Let's just say her cheerleading moves would often make an appearance on nights out. And I mean, maybe if we're lucky, tonight too. With Kitty's brains, amazing energy, and of course her wonderful dance moves, she had more guys swooning after her than I could ever imagine. So many that I couldn't keep track of them, and I had to resort to calling them things like Sandhurst and race car driver. I mean, I'm terrible at names, but there was a lot of them. But let's be real, none of them were ever good enough for our amazing Kitty.
So, the famous or infamous Kitty Seuss was a mere myth or legend to me at university. Cropping up on every economic boys' dinner party invite list, Kitty and I developed an ever-increasing mutual friend count. I actually asked one person here tonight what their first memory of Kitty was. Their answer, 3 p.m, cheerleader's outfit and a bottle of wine. The cheerleader's outfit, not fancy dress. So going back through our old messages together, my first interaction with Kitty actually turns out that Kitty was trying to sell me a Fitbit. But for the purpose of a good speech, we will gloss over the precious selling tactics employed there. Okay. And despite not buying the Fitbit, Kitty and Kitty and I's friendship got started in those wayward years after Bristol. So that post-university blur of thinking you're a real adult, trying to work out how the world makes sense. 6 hours trains journeys to Devon, 3 tubes, buses across London. We have traipsed over half the capital and country together. Yet our friendship developed. Fresher Francis and the cheerleader with a bottle of wine at 3 p.m, taking on the adult word of our 20s. To say we were totally in control was it was a slight overstatement. But with Kitty by my side, I was never alone. Strange karaoke bars in Soho, glitter paint, and commandeering the dance floor. We always started as a group, but slowly but surely, the I've got work the next day brigade left. And Kitty and I, both very much working the next day, would find ourselves at 4 a.m. giggling on the tube, trying desperately to get home, or at least back to Kitty's flat. In fact, this happened so often that Kitty converted a cupboard into a 3rd bedroom for me. Like, actually not even joking.
So, over the years, Kitty's amazing dancing spread far beyond the streets of London to places like the Isle of Wight and all over France. It was on these trips that Kitty became my sister that I had always wished for and never had. But unfortunately, they also brought the lowest part in our friendship. When I found out that Kitty Seuss did not like red wine or blue cheese, I'm French! But don't fret, that was soon remedied with so much red wine and blue cheese with Bromman over there that our dreams turned pretty crazy, and sofas turned a whole new shade of red with the wine that we drunkenly spilled all over them. But more importantly, back to Kitty's dancing. Not only did Kitty's mad dance moves make appearances on many French tabletops, it was also in France that I learned that she could not only twerk incredibly well, but also twerk upside down. From crawling along the streets of Saint-Tropez to skiing your first powder runs and doing port to port between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. Yes, that's only half an hour to down an entire bottle of port. Kitty, you have been my partner in crime in so many ways.
Yeah. So, as we try to piece together our 20s, it can certainly be said that Kitty seemed to always have an exciting new job. Whether in Monaco at one point, or being helicoptered in to buy paint in the south of France, or consulting in New York, we all managed to join her, though, through Kitty the Influencer on Instagram.
Rich man.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone followed Kitty on Instagram during that era, but she may have been one of the very first and only influencers to film cabbages in New York for 6 weeks straight.
Cabbage cam.
Yeah, cabbage cam. Hashtag cabbage cam. It was like Sex and the City meets Gardener's World. But despite living the corporate fast lane, Kitty still managed to master the dating world, and quite frankly was an inspiration. It was quite like having a real-life Carrie Bradshaw among us. But then, London Bridge, around London Bridge, 2019, Kitty was on a date with someone from PwC. An accountant. A slight change from the race car drivers and the army officers of university life. But there was something different about Paul. He didn't seem to letting me join for a drink before allowing me to pick up Kitty and head off for a debrief dinner sans Paul, leaving Paul to finish his beer alone and head back to his housemate Dom. The phrase "treat them mean to keep them keen" was coined for this exact moment. Anyway, poor befuddled Paul was left wondering what was going on. Yet Kitty would not stop talking about this Paul. All evening it was Paul this, Paul that, all race car drivers forgotten. This was quite seemingly it. Kitty Seuss was quite frankly smitten. If you haven't guessed it from the above, Kitty lives life at 1,000,000 miles an hour and is often changing directions. Always saying yes to anything and everything. She has it all. She's the cornerstone of every friendship group and is the best host, adding Chinese New Year, the 4th of July, and forcing the appreciation of Eurovision to the social calendar. Yeah, an international girl at her best. Kitty may have been smitten, but Paul had a race on his hands. But boy, has he kept up. From disco drag nights, dragging pheasants to pubs, hasty exits from clubs that sell the wrong type of champagne, to cosy nights in the country where rumour has it they once rented a dog for the weekend. Life with the two of them is never dull.
Now, jokes aside, Kitty is the most thoughtful, fun, and loving person I know. She's the type of person that will drop everything in a heartbeat if you need her, whilst always bringing the fun if you need some rowdiness. Or even an incredible dance to Wap and Pony from Cardi B with so much enthusiasm that she has carpet bones and can barely walk the next day.
Literally, though.
Quite literally. So whilst Kitty definitely takes the lead on the dance floor, Paul wins when it comes to pub quizzes. And together you are unstoppable. All I know is that a room with Kitty and Paul is definitely a room that I want to be in. So we're all pretty damn lucky right now.
Sorry, not over. A little bit. Kitty, you found him. Someone who can keep up with your world, someone who you can inspire and also slightly challenge you. We must have spoken for hours about Paul, and I probably know far too much, but it has been amazing and inspiring. It has been amazing. Yeah. It has been amazing and inspiring to follow your love so closely. And you deserve it. You deserve to be this happy. Honestly, your unbelievable positive attitude, which is so infectious that every smile in this room is down to you. And maybe a little bit Paul as well. I'll give him that. You're brilliantly honest, fair and loyal, and everyone here knows that you would go to battle for us. Or Paul would if the war was over the availability of Moet or Verve. So anyway. Piper. So, okay. Anyway, 3 p.m, cheerleader's outfit and a bottle of wine. I'm so happy. It's now 5 p.m, white dress and a glass of champagne. May we all please be upstanding to raise a glass to Kitty and her husband, Paul.
So that was fun. That's the guy that you could all hear singing the hymn. Yeah, now we get, there's a lot of anecdotes to Paul in there as well. Now he gets to say his own words. May I introduce you, Mr. Paul Walker, a married man.
Hi, thank you everyone. I will keep this short because we all know this is the boring speech of the day. So, be generous to the gags, they're weak. And they start in the next sentence. So, I'd like to all start by welcoming you to Kitty's wedding. Oh no, wait, my wedding. Right. I would like to just say a few words before I get to listen for the next 40 years. But I want to start with some thank yous. So I want to say thank you to our families who have supported us throughout this whole process and organisation. You've both stepped up at different times to get us through this, and there's no way we could have been here today without you. And I'm so proud and happy to say that today my family has grown and Kitty's family has grown, so thank you. I think you are a generous crowd. This is good. I'm gonna enjoy this. I think it's also important to remember and say thank you to the people who've flown a long way to be here today. So Mark and Stephen phoning from the US. We've got the McDonald's who have come from Ireland and Germany. We've got Kitty's brother Daniel who's come from the US. Kitty's aunt has come from Hungary. So I think everyone, Kitty and I are so happy that you could be here today to celebrate with us. Thank you. We're really grateful. Now I'd just like to take a moment to mention a couple of people that aren't here today. I know that Kitty would have really loved it if her cousins were able to have been here today. My dad would have really liked it if his cousin could have made it today. And also, one of Kitty's bridesmaids couldn't be here today, Laura. But she's at home looking after her beautiful 10-week-old girl, Lexi.
Great name.
Lovely name. But regardless of if she's here or not, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to her for all the support and everything she's done for you over the years. So she deserves that moment. To the bridesmaids, Francis, Rose, it goes without saying you both look absolutely beautiful, right? You're beautiful. Thank you for getting Kitty here on time today. Actually, I actually had a joke in here that was on time today-ish, but you were like bang on, right? You were bang on, so well done. And then my next joke doesn't really make much sense anymore because, so I'm just going to move on. Thank you for keeping Kitty calm today. I'm sure there was all sorts going on this morning. Thank you so much. Thank you for both of you for the support throughout the years, not just today, to both of us. I'm so happy that we got to share some of our special day with you. So thank you. So I would just like to raise a toast to the bridesmaids. Woo! So to the bridesmaids. Now to my best men, Tim, Dom, and also my groomsmen. They're here, dotted around the room. Rich, Luckett. I actually think the best thing I can do to say thank you is just let you have another drink. So, to the groomsmen! Hooray! Well done, mate. All right. Now, for the final part of these thank yous, I need to turn to Kitty and say thank you. Thank you for all the hard work and stress you've put into today. Honestly, it is the best day of my life. The drive, determination you have shown to plan all this is above and beyond. And you won't believe this, but throughout the whole process, sometimes I've been a little bit useless. Right? So much so, because I'm a big praise lover, right? And I've looked for, I've looked for rounds of applause for ordering my own ring. Ordering the ice. And the alcohol. Yeah. No, I didn't do the ice in the end, but it was in my speech, so I read it. Kitty, I don't take the opportunity enough to just how proud I am of you. You work so incredibly hard, and you do it with taking on more than your fair share of crap from this world. I know that if the world had more Kitties in it, it would be a far, far better place. You are the most important person in the world to me. You make me feel safe, cared for, unconditionally loved, and I would not be the person I am today without you. I'm eternally grateful. Today is the start of something new. It's not just a new chapter, it's a whole new book. It's the Paul and Kitty book. But I wanted to close down. This is the sweet bit, don't laugh. I wanted to close down that last chapter properly. So, Kitty, I'm sorry when over the last few years it hasn't been the easiest. I'm sorry when my communication's been lacking. I'm sorry when a 50-50 feels like a 60-40. We've had ups, downs, arguments, laughter, crisis, and ultimately overwhelming love. And I wouldn't change a single second of our story, because every single second has led to me being stood here calling you my wife. So... They say the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you realise why. I realised why when Kitty and I decided to try punting in Cambridge about 6 weeks into our relationship. Now, I did the manly thing, and I said I could punt, right? I sold it like I was training for the next Olympics, right? And Kitty, being the modern woman, said she'd do 50-50. I think she was trying to impress me still, right? So after managing to get us a fair way down the river, we hadn't sung, the sun was shining, tourists were even taking pictures of Kitty. She was laying back in it, she was looking great. We decided to swap over. After 15 seconds, Kitty had managed to crash us into a bridge. And after 30 seconds, I was back in training for the next Olympics again. But sat there watching Kitty valiantly fail, I knew in that moment she was the one. I knew I was going to marry her. There aren't many people in this world can stand there and say, I know the exact moment that I fell in love with my wife. And while reminiscing about significant moments of my life, I'd like to take a short little timeline of my life, PK, pre-Kitty. Now, December 2018. So not many people know this, but when I was single, I dated a lot. But after 3 years of dating, I was at a particularly low ebb. So much so that I agreed to stay in a 2-man caravan with Tim and his now fiancée, Rach. Now, while watching Strictly Come Dancing, Yeah, while watching Strictly Come Dancing, I actually got let go by the latest girl I was dating. And it was at this moment that Rachel decided she needed to jump in and intervene in this car crash of her love life. She said to me, you just need to manifest the right girl. Let's make a list, write it down, and stop dating the wrong girls. So out came the iPhone, and we made a list. This is what so I actually went away and I found my old iPhone and I pulled the list off it. And this is what I wrote. I wrote blonde. I swear. Yeah. There's more. There is more to it. I didn't. It was there's more than one bullet point. Blonde. At least an 8 out of 10 attractiveness, but has a pretty face. Boobs more than bum. Christian, smart, sporty, in a professional job, but ambitious. Does it remind you of anyone here? Now, let's jump 5 months on. 8th of May, 2019, the most important sliding doors moment of my life. No one had heard of COVID, and I actually looked like my WhatsApp photo, right? Unlike this catfishing Temu version that you have today, right? I'd given up on dating. I had a job offer to go to New York, and I just wanted to start again. But I did have one final loose end. I had a girl from Hinge who was texting me at increasingly sporadic intervals, but I tentatively agreed to go for a drink with her that evening. So I woke up, I had a bit of a cold, the weather was raining, and I had to trek all the way out to Park Royal to audit a car garage, right? So glamorous, I did wonder how my date would ever keep her hands off me. But there it was, my sliding doors moment. What do? Do I cancel or do I make the effort and go? Thank God I made the effort, because at 5:30 on that Wednesday afternoon, Kitty walked out through the curtain and past the host, and I got that first look of Kitty. And I can tell you what I saw. I saw the bright blonde hair. I gave a tick on that list straight away. I saw the blue cocktail dress. I saw a few other things I can't talk about in public. But from that moment, I knew my life plan had altered. I knew that I wasn't gonna go to New York. And from our first kiss at the bottom of the escalator at Waterloo Station, I was sold. It's fairly romantic. So I'd now just like you to indulge me while I appreciate my beautiful new wife, Kitty. I'm so lucky that I get to wake up next to you every day. But to admit my own fault, that does mean that I can get complacent. But seeing you walk down the aisle again today, I want to tell you what I saw for the first time all over again. Yes, I saw your beauty. Everyone saw this. You're radiant. You're a complete picture of perfection. But I also saw a woman that was empathetic, kind, caring. I saw a future laid out in front of us. I saw a future of our family of our own. Now, I'd like to end this speech by going off on a little bit of a tangent and talk about a Disney film. Not one of the super famous Disney films, one of the lesser known films, Lilo and Stitch. This is not one of the super happy, clappy films. This is actually a film about struggle, about finding your place in this world. And above all, it's about Ohana. Now, those of you who don't know what Ohana is, to steal a quote from the film, Ohana means family, and family means nobody is left behind. This quote has come to mean a lot to Kitty and I over the years. And I'm so happy that today, finally, officially, I get to say, Kitty, you are my Ohana. You can clap. You can clap. You will never be left behind. No matter what the world throws at us, from this day forward, we take it on as a two. So I'd like to raise a final toast. So, to my soulmate, the love of my life, and now finally, my wife, Kitty Seuss.
Is Ash not introducing us? No?
Honestly, guys, I thought you just got right. The best men.
Well, we were kind of hoping at least one of those speeches was an absolute car crash. And unfortunately, they were both brilliant, so we're sorry in advance. So for anyone who doesn't know us yet, we are lucky enough to be chosen as Paul's best men. So I'm Dom.
And I'm Tim.
Right. So, you mentioned earlier that you've known Kitty for 10 plus years. I unfortunately have known Paul for over 30 years now, which makes me feel really old. So going back to primary school days at St Pat's, we every now and again still go down to our local Catholic club for a beer or 7, set the world to rights. Although now Paul's living his best life, it's more often I'm down there with an orange juice with Brian.
I first met Paul during our time together at Southampton Uni, and for the first few months when we were there, I didn't really have much to do with him. I just knew him as Rich's housemate. But as time passed, we spent more time together, and I do remember my first overriding thoughts of him were that he had a really messy mop of jet black hair. It was a shame that didn't last, but his shirts were always too big. And he claimed to be from London, despite having a thick Essex accent. I also remember that he was always talking. But having spent some time with Brian in recent weeks, I can see where he got that from. Yeah? Paul... Sorry, Brian. Sorry.
That's the last one.
Yeah. Paul's appetite for endless chatter has not changed in the 15 years we've known each other. But you can quickly cut through the chatter. You realise that 95% of it is just bluster. 5% of it is useless facts. And there is just some snippets of useful information or advice somewhere dropped in the middle. But despite all that, we quickly became really good friends. So, Paul, I'm honoured to be standing here today as half of your best man duo. Yeah? Paul, I'm looking forward to you returning the best man favour to me in just a few weeks' time. But I have been quite careful writing this speech. Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have to be quite so careful. So here goes. I'd like to just share a quick story of a holiday Paul and I went on a few years ago to Spain to do the Camino de Santiago, which for anyone who doesn't know is a pilgrimage across northern Spain. Yeah. That's one cheer. So as soon as we got off to this trip, which again was planned over a beer or 7 with Paul, because nothing gets done without a few beers. Got on the plane. As soon as we started, Paul sat down, earphones in, ready to catch up on the latest Love Island. No matter where he goes, he has to keep up to date. A young girl sat next to us, started crying immediately. Sat there, floods of tears. After trying to do some Sudoku to get to know each other, she turns round to me and in really broken English says, "Can stay you tonight?" Being really trusting, knocked Paul on the shoulder and said, "Can she stay?" Without breath after taking his earphones, was sure, puts them back in. Neither of us had any idea that she was actually serious. Cut to the plane landing, 10 minutes later, we're in a taxi back to this hotel. Walk in the reception, receptionist looks at us, sort of, "You've booked 2 single beds." Again, Paul, nothing phases him. He looks at them straight away. "We booked 2, now there's 3. So the room was changed very quickly. 3 of us march upstairs, trying to hold a conversation while we really didn't have a clue what was going on. And to anyone who's ever spent the night near Paul will know he cannot sleep if there's any light. So he runs to the curtains, closes them, makes sure there's not a beam of light anywhere. The girl goes straight away to the curtains, folds the corner up. Just so this little tiny bit of light comes in. Us being sound-minded 20-something-year-olds at the time were terrified. We were sure she was signalling to someone outside who was going to come in the middle of the night. Passports, phones went under the pillow, hidden away to make sure that we were safe. Luckily, we were. Morning came, she left, and for the rest of that week, I had the pleasure of enjoying Paul getting in touch with his religious side and singing Jerusalem every 5 seconons. So I think it's only fair if I quickly pause and ask Paul to bless you all with a quick line. Go on, Paul. Yes, we are. One line of Jerusalem, please.
And did those feet?
And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountains? That's enough.
Thanks, Willie.
Some of mine and Paul's best memories have come while we've travelled together. Our travels have taken us from Malia to Machu Picchu, from Madrid to the Taj Mahal, and Benidorm, but more of that later. A particular memory was when we did, along with some guys from uni, the Ink Trail in 2015. So, where we quickly learned that Paul and altitude just don't get on. After a day of beautiful trekking through the Peruvian Andes, we stopped to set up tent in the mountains for the night, but shortly after a high-intensity football match against our Peruvian Sherpas, I believe we won 8-7, and Paul was his typical no-nonsense English centre-back. But what followed, however, was one of the least enjoyable nights of my life. Paul and I sharing what can only be described as a cosy two-man tent, taking it in turns to climb over each other in the middle of the night to be sick out of the tent door. Yeah? Paul blames the altitude. I blame the donkey poo that was strewn over the whole football pitch. But lo and behold, the next morning, Paul decided he was too ill to continue our trek, so decided to ask our Peruvian guide, who to say she was small in stature was an understatement, forced her to take him 5 hours back down the mountain, at which point, when he got to the bottom, he collapsed into the nearest luxury hotel and slept for a grand total of 24 hours. Yeah? Worst of all, he didn't tip her a penny. Yeah? Oh.
I didn't know I had to.
But, so I think the moral of that story, getting Paul to open his wallet has always been a challenge. And famously, whenever we go to the bar together, it's always Tim's rounds. Yeah? Well, today is Paul's round. And I'm going to enjoy every one of them. Yeah. Another particular favourite memory was in 2016 when I took a career break from work. And Paul and I decided to go away somewhere together after we decided that his fledgling teaching career had come to an end and he was going to copy the rest of his friends and become an accountant. So, as usual, we met in a pub, had a beer or 7, and a few hours later we'd booked a 6-week trip to India. We made some incredible memories on that trip, but I think it's fair to say by the end of the trip, Paul and India had fallen out of love with each other. It turns out that eating lentils 3 times a day is not really Paul's cup of tea. The endless 90% humidity and the numerous times a day where we had to squeeze Paul's rather large frame onto some knackered public transport, I think it's by the time it was finished, he'd had enough. Yeah. This culminated when we had a trip to Pushkar in the desert. And we'd booked ourselves a day-long camel ride. So neither of us had ridden a camel before, so we didn't really know what to expect. But it's fair to say they're not built for comfort. Yeah? So after a whole day of Paul's camel spitting at him, rearing its head, and not to mention our private parts taking quite a battering, Paul had had enough. Yeah? What followed, we had a fantastic evening drinking 8% extra strong Kingfisher beers in the desert with our guides, dancing around a fire, and yet again, Jerusalem. We had a fantastic evening, but lo and behold, the next morning, Paul had fallen ill again and decided he'd had enough. There's a common theme here. He spent most of the rest of the trip to India lying flat on his back, in 90% humidity, moaning and declaring that he was fed up with India. So I think the moral of the story is Paul is best in his home comforts, which is typically in the pub, over a beer, or 7, setting the world to rights with a whoever will listen.
Typically with Paul, it always goes back to another story of a holiday and a drink. So it brings us nicely to a recent trip to Benidorm to celebrate Paul's stag do. As the classy guy that he is, he has always wanted to go to Benidorm. So Tim and I didn't want to disappoint. What followed next was 2 weeks, it wasn't that long, it felt it, 2 days of great fun, utter chaos and many, many patchy memories. What we didn't enjoy really as much was Paul's desire to dispense with some of his clothes at every possible opportunity. The first one, however, wasn't really his fault. Kitty had managed to help us sneak a pair of disposable swim trunks onto into Paul's dissolvable swim trunks. They are very different. Into his luggage. So we rocked up to what had branded itself as a luxury yacht trip. Wasn't quite as much. 40-odd people in a queue for this rusty old catamaran. Lovely. On the way there, someone in the party had managed to acquire themselves a little water pistol. Weakened the defences somewhat. No blame there. So in typical Paul fashion, he got talking to a bunch of experienced ladies and to impress them attempted some yoga. In the middle of his best downward dog, everyone got an eyeful of far more than they've wanted to see. The most memorable bit of the trip, though, had to be the high quality of food on offer. Starting with a kebab in a local eatery, only interrupted by the odd cockroach scuttling around our feet. Moving to the catamaran with a single piece of barely cooked chicken. And then on to Rockstar for an all-you-can-eat barbecue buffet. Turns out a single slab of sausage meat was about all most of us could eat. We were only saved the whole trip by unexpected tubs of KFC that one of the guys on the stag do just kept bringing every 5 minutes. But you will all be pleased to know that the meal you're about to have has nothing to do with me.
It's fair to say Paul's always enjoyed a bit of fancy dress, and we've had many good days or nights out in our time. We've dressed as sheikhs, we've dressed as schoolboys, we've dressed as Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts. And Benidorm was no different. Yeah? The outbound flight from Luton, Paul squeezed his frame into quite a fetching Hello Kitty number, which I think it's fair to say showed off all of his curves. Yeah? It turns out there's not that many people who try and buy an extra large Hello Kitty costume. And it's done my internet history no good, since it's been offering me the chance to buy extra large fetish costumes ever since. The second night was no different, and we decided to make one of Paul's life goals a reality by dressing him up as Little Bo Peep, herding his sheep around the town. I bought the frumpiest Little Bo Peep outfit I could find online, complete with ballet shoes and shepherd's staff. And with Kitty's help, we also sourced 20 sheep t-shirts for us all to wear as his herding around the town. To be fair to Paul, you wore it well. You were absolutely in your element. What we weren't expecting, however, was that for you to decide for the rest of the night, again, that your pants were completely dispensable. So the sight of you walking along the Benidorm Strip with your boxer shorts hanging over your staff is a memory that I will not forget for a very long time. As the night progressed, Paul decided again that he could twerk, and he spent most of the rest of the... As a thing? You might see it later, and he spent most of the rest of the evening twerking in the middle of the road with everything hanging out for the Benidorm Strip for all to see. What came next was also slightly unexpected, and Paul again decided to get in touch with his religious side and celebrate Jesus' coming three months earlier than the rest of the Western world by repeatedly bellowing the famous carol Once in Royal David City into anyone's ears who would listen. So Paul, again, I think it's only fair that we get another rendition now. Once in Royal David City stood a lonely castle.
I think that's enough for now about Paul. We'll just say a word or two about Kitty. Nothing quite so bad. So when I first met Kitty, Paul and I were living in a lovely little council estate in Elephant and Castle. And Paul fancies himself a little bit of a chef. So he was preparing a slap-up meal with a nice bottle of white wine ready to go. Only as Kitty's on the way, though, does he realise in this flat we had a single wine glass between us. So off I went to the shop, grabbed a quick emergency glass, arrived back just as Kitty did. Paul promptly sent me to my room with strict instructions that I was not to be allowed out the rest of the night.
Did he cook for you, though?
You let Kitty give me food. Kitty was far more social. As soon as they'd eaten, I got a knock on the door, inviting me out for a glass of wine and a game of bananagrams on the table. But I remember my first thought when Kitty walked into that flat was, Paul, you are punching. So since then, Kitty and I have become more than just associates of Paul. She has become his wife, and Kitty and I have become good friends. And she has always been a real constant positive spirit and really kept Paul on the up and up and the straight and narrow. So even when Kitty and I went for dinner before, I've managed to book us one restaurant and I turned up at a totally different one. So she had to jump on a scooter quickly to get there on time. But Kitty, seriously, from day one, we could really see you were always the one for Paul. As soon as you walked out of that flat, he turned round and he hasn't stopped talking about you. None of us are saying it's wound us up, but it's all the time.
My first time meeting Kitty was at Ascot Races. Yeah. We'd heard a lot about her beforehand, and we were really looking forward to meeting her, and it's fair to say we weren't disappointed. Kitty, in the years since, you've become a great friend in your own right. As the others have said, you're fun, you're really positive, you're so caring, and you're really great fun to be around. Perhaps the most shining example of your caring nature was again when Paul decided to go for a beer, or 7, and signed himself, Dom, Ronak and me up to a 100-kilometre walk through the South Downs. Despite it being really clear in the race instructions that a support crew was mandatory, Paul neglected to consider this until just a week beforehand. But somehow he managed to persuade Kitty to be a one-woman support team, which was a pretty rough job, considering it involved driving through country roads in the dead of night with no discernible directions to meet us at 20-kilometre intervals when we were cold, tired, hungry, and pretty miserable. But Kitty, the sight of you at 70 kilometres, delivering a warm roast chicken dinner, complete with roast potatoes, vegetables, and gravy, yeah, was an act of kindness that I won't forget in a very, very long time. So, back to Paul. So, Paul's typical approach to attending social events is to cease all social contact for a couple of weeks beforehand, claim he's lost his phone, claim he's been busy, and then often turn up unannounced, demanding where he should be, at what time, and who he owes money to. So I think we're all really, really grateful that Kitty took the lead on organising today. As if it was down to Paul, there's absolutely no way we'd have all been here in the same place at the same time. Just a couple of examples of messages I've received from Paul in recent months about today. First one, I have made this group with no intention to say anything in it other than I am doing Wedmin. And nothing ever came. Second message to the groomsmen. FYI, your buttonhole will have pink in it. I was told to tell everyone, there is nothing for you to do, but my job is now done. Absolutely useless. Contrast this with Kitty, who has made a 100-page PowerPoint presentation to guide the entire wedding party through all of the intricate details of today, so that we can all be wearing the right thing, turn up in the right place, all at the same time. So Kitty, the huge amount of work you put in today has really, really paid off. The church was fantastic, the venue was amazing, and you look absolutely stunning. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
I suppose I should at least say something nice about Paul. So, Paul, we have known each other for a very long time. You've been as close to me as any brother, and you have really showed me that you are useless with the little things. General communication, making plans, answering messages just aren't your forte. But for the big things, you have always been there. And I really do look forward to spending time with you and Kitty and seeing how your relationship grows from here.
Thank you. Similarly for me, Paul, whilst I've spent most of this speech mocking you, joking aside, you have been one of my closest friends for the last 15 years. We've enjoyed so many good times together, and I can't wait for many more to come, but now with Kitty by your side. So please, can we encourage everyone to be upstanding and shout a massive congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Walker.